All right. I'll call this regular meeting of the School District of Belleville Board of Education to order at 7:31 PM. Can I get a roll call, please, Marion?
Meg Anthony,
Present.
Alan Charles,
Here.
Ryan Kubley,
Here.
Tony Schmidt,
Here.
Marion Binney, here, Katie Worley,
Here.
Beth Yurs. Here. 7 present.
All right. I will entertain a motion for tonight's agenda approval.
I will make that motion.
You got it. Second.
Motion made by Marion, seconded by Ryan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda approval, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes 7-0. First up, in public comments and communication, we have no visitor comments this evening. Presumably, we will double check. No. Okay, fabulous. No visitor comments, so we will move right along to district highlights with Jim.
Thank you. Just a review since our last meeting on September 17th, the Belleville High School band performed the national anthem before the start of the Milwaukee Brewer game. So this was the first band night for the Brewers. And as we stated in the past meeting, our director, Stephanie Meyer, submitted that audition recording of the band to earn the honors. And we had several videos and pictures, which we shared. So just wanted to do one more circle back since we were there last month. So really a great opportunity. Our other district highlight is here tonight. So we're really excited to have representatives from Johnny O's Pizza. So the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, I have peanut butter stuck there, so I had to clear that out. The Wisconsin Association of School Boards invites member school boards to submit names of local businesses that have been helpful to their school district over the past year. Zach Nelson helped draft our district's nomination this year. He wrote, Johnny O's Pizzeria has made a meaningful impact on the school district of Belleville. Through their generous support, they have become more than a favorite spot for delicious pizza. They become a cornerstone of our school spirit and community. From sponsoring fundraisers to providing meals for special events, their contributions have helped enhance various school programs and activities, including athletic team dinners, poolside pizza, if you're there in the summertime, that's always fun, and they have the truck there, advertising on school media, and providing staff workday lunches. Johnny O's supports our educational community beyond serving great pizza. They're committed to being an active, supportive partner in our educational journey. We're grateful for Johnny O's unwavering support and look forward to continuing our positive relationship with them in the future. All nominated businesses are posted on the WASB website, and we have shared the awarding of Johnny O's Pizzeria through our social media accounts and post messenger recorder, and want to personally thank the owner, John Sunderlich, for his support. So, I was listening to John, and he was talking in the back with Eric about a whole nother group from Oregon, a soccer team, and he just flat out just said, we give 40% off for any athletic teams or school programs or school groups, flat out. And it's just, as I shared, the contribution, which is well over $1,000, he provided to the school district for the Wednesday, for the Wildcat pizzas, and of course, a little bit extra we get on Wednesdays as well. So here tonight is John. We're going to get up in just a minute, take a picture. Also his fiance, Raven Haight, who it's his fiance, and they are getting married a week from Saturday. So we're really excited. So congratulations on that. Didn't realize you had a pre-reception, and niece Freya is here as well. So they're going to come up. And then Katie, if you would join me, the two of us will do a picture with John and Raven and Freya, and then we will post that as well. So come on up, the three of you. And then Eric, I need you to
My question, John, is who's making pizza tonight?
we were very excited for that to happen. So glad he was able to make it. And I also told him he could sneak out without feeling badly. So that's it for our district highlights.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you so much.
What's that? Oh, yeah, you got the, you do the airdrop and everything you need. There you go.
All right. Next up is correspondence.
Yep, thank you for that. We had 4 correspondence to share, and also a general one. Just wanted to keep you aware that our staff continue to receive some real positive feedback from families. I'll forward those to you as well. But the first one was from Senator Diane Hesselbein, and she noticed the Lingonberry listening session, which we had about half a dozen people at that. It was a good session. We are actually going to do another one next month on the day after our next board meeting on November 12th at the Senior Center. So I'm going to pass that one around so that you can see. We did have a couple of staff members who had losses in their family and expressed appreciation for the district acknowledging that and sending their wishes. So I'm going to pass those as well. I did include scans of those in the board docs. And then I did share earlier as well an email from a family member in regards to Mr. Loshaw. And it's a good opportunity to be able to share just general. I'm not going to use student names, but I shared the content with you as well. But this particular student was in a pretty tough situation in terms of a medical condition, and Mr. Loshaw really helped smooth that process over to really focus on outcomes for the student rather than really holding that student back to on all the little nitty-gritty things, but really on the big picture of what had to be taken care of. And that transition and special touch really made a big difference in the lives of that family. So I think I shared that with you as well via email. So just some real positive things in the last month as well coming from outside of the district staff.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions or comments about that from the board? Next up, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made by Marion, seconded by Ryan. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of consent agenda approval say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
All opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0. All right. Next up are reports, and up next we have our student representatives.
So I mentioned as Soraya, oh, you're going to, thank you. You got it.
So again, our 2 student reps this year are going about it a little bit differently. It was mentioned earlier, and thank you to Board President Katie Worley. So she sent a whole bunch of different topics for our students to discover, and they have taken upon themselves they're not going to speak just on behalf of themselves. They're each working with a whole bunch of different students and student bodies to give more direct feedback on questions. So each month they're going to be addressing certain questions that were provided from Katie to help better our students' experience and really challenge our teachers and our entire district just to continue to improve. So today they are going to each give a response to 3 separate prompts. Mr. Riker Swenson is going to go first.
Good evening. Yep. So the prompt that I'm going to be addressing tonight is what would make students feel delighted with the process of learning, and what would students like to see the district start doing, stop doing, and keep doing to attain that goal? To start, this has been a really pressing topic in our school for quite a few years. As Belleville continues to grow and develop, we kind of become a more culturally diverse school, and to kind of show that environment, I know that lots of students want to kind of see more cultural activities within school. These events can kind of help connect students of cultural background and engage them on a personal level to the content that they learn in class. This is going to help create a more fun environment for them and allow them to apply this knowledge in the real world. An example of this might include social festivities, workshops, and clubs. To stop doing, I didn't really want to keep stop doing. I went more along the change thing because I think we're doing a lot of good things. We shouldn't just kind of shut them down right away. But stop doing is change doing is the correction policy. And that's really more to the 70%. I know a lot of students don't really feel that up to 70% is fair. They feel that if they're putting in the work to help correct after that point. Even if they get like a 71, they have to just stick with that. If they're willing to put in the work and learn from their mistakes, they feel that it would be fair for them to get, a mark above that. Regardless of what that may be, I don't really know, but just some point above 70. I know we can do retakes, but when we do corrections, it allow you to learn from your mistakes and help prevent that in the future, which is just better for learning overall. And for keep doing, this is a new one this year that we just implemented, which is Wildcat time. I know lots of students that like this. It gives students a structured environment within their schedule where they may not have like a study hall to help see other teachers. Um, I know I've used it before. I've come in, I've gotten help for a test on a project. So it just helps students stay more structured regardless of their schedule and just giving them more support, which is always beneficial. That's for me.
Thank you.
Hey there. So I'm also answering the same prompt a little bit. So one thing I'd like to see the school district start doing is encouraging more involvement in extracurricular activities because over the years the just overall student participation in extracurricular activities has been declining, just an overall trend. And additionally, I think it's important that we make sure we can offer like really strong extracurricular activities. And then also for stop doing, I had more of a like preventing because recently we've kind of lost some of our intermediate classes, especially for seniors who maybe aren't comfortable taking an AP class, but also still want to have like a core math or English class for their senior year. Some of examples of the classes we've lost are college readiness math, MATC algebra, intro to college reading and writing, and we lost calculus, just normal calculus, a few years back. And then for keep doing, I also had Wildcat time. It's been really good to be able to have a time where anybody can go and see any teacher and get things, worked on and whatnot. And I think it would be good to utilize the time more for club meetings because I know that was one of the purposes of that time. Additionally, I know this is probably how it worked out best in the schedule, but is kind of like a disruption when we have to leave halfway through for lunch and it kind of breaks concentration. That was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. Up next is our district administrator report.
There we go. All right. We again have donations this month. We received donations from Johnny O's Pizzeria. I mentioned earlier. I couldn't remember the number off the top of my head, but there we are, 1,226 for those Wildcat Pizza sales. So just to put a little plug in, every Wildcat Pizza sale, he gives us $2, and every Wildcat Pizza sale on the first Wednesday of the month, he gives us $4. So, and I remember sitting there with him in a booth, and he was doing the math right there, and it was just fun to watch him do it, and just his passion for supporting schools. And if you read the article as well, it just makes you feel really good. Janet Beach, a $500 for Pay It Forward. Those are those lunch accounts. And then also Brother Love for the Pay It Forward, and also the Backpack Club, which includes those gift cards for food at Piggly Wiggly and pre-purchase food. So in case people are not aware what the Backpack Club is, it's those two pieces. And again, it's just not a gift card specifically to be used at Piggly Wiggly. We did have an evacuation on September 19th. So there's a big pop noise outside around 7:35. Everyone's kind of looked a little confused at that point. And all of a sudden outside, people started to have this smell of, not inside, but outside, the smell of burning electrical. And we knew that we had a contractor working on our HVAC system at the time from North American Mechanical. And so we're out doing the welcome, with students in the drop off. And we had I had this communication with this police department when the patrol that came through. We had a conversation. I asked her to scan the area as well. She came back and thought that we should do an evacuation just as a precaution. She I was sitting or standing right next to her as she made the call. It was a non-emergency, and then the way it came reported back to her was much more escalated. And I remember her saying, kind of yelling, like, that's not what I said. So there was a call to both schools. I did ask Alan because Alan came as well, from the fire department, in terms of our protocols and processes, because the call was to both schools. And that question was, it was right when students were dropping off, and students still came in, and then we still did an evacuation. And Alan, if you wouldn't mind just sharing the debrief you had on your end with the team.
Yeah, so as a department, we talked about it, and the response was fantastic. We were in the elementary school based on the call that we got first, really before I think anybody knew what was happening. And so I know they ended up doing a drill anyway, which is always great to practice. And really, there weren't any issues with the, response in general. I know that the high school went through a drill as well, and thankfully nothing came of it.
Thank you. Ironically, we did have a safety meeting scheduled for like 10 a.m. that day, which this really did give us a good opportunity to debrief some of the different things that we've been talking about. So, we do have, obviously we have more meetings coming up, but it was not a planned dry run, but it was an opportunity to look at systems, and it's all, I think, typically from our experience this last summer when we were here doing the active shooter incident management training, communications. And one of the things that we took away is I was emailing the board real time at that point, but also we now have on my phone to be able to do the Sky Alert messaging, because we did go back and we were able to get a message out within a half hour of the end of the activity, but trying to get that out sooner. And the message would be something in the effect of, all clear, more coming by this time, by 8:45. So that was our one big takeaway, was really to, on the spot, be able to get that message out. We had that much more formal message, but to get that preliminary, because people are hearing sirens, they're seeing emergency vehicles going up the street, and they just dropped their kids off. So
I think it's also encouraging to have experienced how quickly all of the different departments that helped out, within minutes, that were at each of the schools for any future issues.
that ties us into standard response protocol, and this is the system that we will be moving to. We're still working on that transition. We're meeting again with the safety team this month, and so, but this is part of that process that's been adopted by the Department of Justice, but really works on that language, and it's really verb driven. And just want you to know that this is where we are moving to. I know we, Katie, you were here for another event, and some of the language and terminology we're shifting toward this, but we're still working on that piece. The nice thing about this piece is it's, like I said, all verb driven, and there's a lot of simplicity to it, but again, we're making our way in that direction. The Department of Transportation grant, the Safe Routes grant for transportation alternatives, was a grant that was written a couple years ago and secured between the school district and superintendent at the time, district administrator Nate Perry, and the village earned this grant. And the grant sets the district up to create a plan to then go for other grants to try. So it's like the stage. So in other words, it's really hard to go for a grant or funding if you don't have a plan. And so we met in the past month with the village. We had engineers there, and we did a walkthrough. And I have a few pictures up here of the, you can see, where's that mouse? Oh, sorry. This is our facility here, and this is looking north. And we all know that we don't have sidewalks here, and really looking at a potential path that would come over under the road and come over to onto our grounds. There will be some other features to it as well. And this is a picture of the community, because it wasn't this work isn't just about the school district, it's about the entire village. And so we did that preliminary walkthrough with the engineers. It was really good. We did it near the end of school, so they could see students walking along 69, crossing 69. They got to see crossing guards. They got to see the behavior of people in addition. So what's going to happen on November 6th is they're going to come back into this space from 4:30 to 6:30 and have an open house to talk about what they are proposing for in like their best, most cost-effective and safe plan. And then once that plan is approved and adopted, then it goes forward in terms of future future proposals. So if you're looking to tap into a grant to build sidewalks, build underpasses, things like that, we don't have to wonder where. This really does the groundwork for that. So that'll be on Wednesday, November 6th. It'll be in here. Again, it'll be anytime during those 2 hours. So we will advertise this as well, encourage people to come to that event. And I say that because later that same night, we have Veterans Day program. So I'm going to go back and forth to say November 6th, 4:30 to 6:30, November 6th at 7. So I'll have the Veterans Day program as well that same night. So we're going to make you also Belleville Middle High School a one-stop shop for learning about safety and proposals, and also celebrating Veterans Day. So on the Veterans Day piece, Connie Erfer has been working to coordinate this program as in the past. I have some pictures up here of past events. Instead of our band, though, this is an alternating event. So the band one year, and then the elementary led by Sarah Kruger the next year. So Sarah will be leading the elementary, and the elementary kids as well are going to be getting those thank you cards out, and high school forensic students will also be participating. So that event is coming next month as well, before our next meeting on the 11th. So look for that as well, and we'll advertise that on social media as well. We have some upcoming meetings as well, so you can see the different committees that are meeting and when their next meeting. So if you are in one of those, please, you'll probably get a text from me that day as well to remind you. Note the negotiations, that's a closed session at the beginning, and then we follow by that open meeting at 6:15. We do have the vaccine clinic coming on Wednesday this week. So that is for employees and their families, both for COVID or depending on their choice, the flu vaccine. I'm someone who always got my flu vaccine right around Labor Day, and I was told that if I wait a little bit longer, it has more staying power. So but I make it to there without getting sick. So anyway, and big thanks to Anna Helwig, Nurse Anna, and Mr. Perry last year for setting that contract up and bringing that service on site, and Becca Johnson as well. This last week's, so Saturday concluded the Wisconsin School Board's week. Thank you all for your playing along with me to share little bits about yourselves. Although I will say, after that experience, clearly I'm going to pay much more close attention to the Wildcat Bowl, because that's where it's at. So I mean, that was the theme that I took away, and sharing the people behind the work and the giving that you do. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for what you do. It's unheralded work, but it's your commitment and your love of our kids is evident. So thank you. And again, thanks for letting us showcase each one of you over the past week. So that was really fun to read each day. A little side as well, in terms of school board work. So I shared in the past that we've been invited to be part of the Greater County School District Consortium, or Governance Consortium, or GDCSDGC, which was kind of the joke that night. So the group it was an interesting opportunity. Meg and Marion were both there. We'll talk a little bit more about it when we get to boardsmanship. But that happened last Tuesday. It was up at Verona High School. It's a good opportunity to network with other, a mix of board members and superintendents / district administrators, executive assistants, and a few executives from the cabinets in those schools as well. So that happened last week, and it was a good experience. But again, we'll dig into that a little bit more when we get to the boardsmanship piece. Finally, there's a little repeat from last month. Trick or treat is coming, so we have those hours as well, 4:30 to 8. And thank you to Kelsey for helping codify some formal hours so that the doorbells aren't ringing at all sorts of hours. And then a big congratulations to Kelsey. I hope they're both here. Yep, they are both here. So Kelsey Schmidt and Melissa Riedel. So they presented last Thursday. I will tell you on this presentation, when I first saw the work that they were doing on scheduling, it is monumental work. It is really busy. Scheduling tailoring that schedule, especially around prioritizing student diverse learnings, and especially the special education, the English learners, or the multiple language learners, is very, very complicated work. The work that they've done, as a former elementary principal, I was jealous. When I saw it, I thought, wow, this is impressive work. And they shared it at the state convention last Thursday. It's a big deal to present to your colleagues, no matter what the level. It is wonderful professional development because you really have to hone your messaging and your work. And I just think it's worthy of applause as well for the work that they did last Thursday. And I really want to congratulate the two of them. So if you don't mind. And I did not tell them I was going to do this, so they probably wouldn't have shown up. So that's the end of the district highlight, or the district administrator report.
All right, any questions for Jim? Thank you for that. Up next is our Director of Transportation report.
Okay. Hello. All right. So let's go to this one. Oh, there's wording's gone. So we welcome Steve Yoder this year. He took over the Red Monkey route, replacing Rick Davis. We still have the 7 routes, our 2 4K routes. Our numbers, as you can see from the Baker's Woods subdivision, is increasing. And it is, I think this year, just probably in the last couple weeks, I've already added at least 5 to 6 new kids out there. So I anticipate that going up. If it keeps going up as the numbers show, we are probably going to be needing to look at adding a town bus out there. However, I need a driver for that and a bus for that too. Bus inspection. We do a yearly bus inspection every year. This year it was done the end of July. We have a DOT inspector here in town, and she always comes up and inspects our buses. They all passed inspection. And again, this is the 2nd year in a row that we haven't had anything taken out of service, which is another reason we do it during the summertime. That way, if something is taken out of service, I have time to get it down to the shop and get it remedied before the start of the school year. Our new bus is set to arrive next month or December at the very latest. We are being upgraded due to a snafu. Originally on our contract, it said that our bus was supposed to arrive December of 2025. And in talking with them, they have a bus that is it on the lot up there? Okay, it's being built and it will be in either November or December. We're getting an upgrade, so our new bus will have a white roof, in case you've ever seen the buses with the white roof. That is a $500 extra charge. What it's intended to do is keep the inside of the bus cooler in the summertime. And then also this bus will have seat belts in the front 2 seats that are built into the seat. So there's a piece that you can pull down, and there's seat belts that are into the seat. And if you're not using them, you can put it back up, and it's just a flat back on the seat. And then Jim and I had talked about the electric buses because I keep getting the information for the grants. I last fall went down to Palmyra Eagle when they introduced their electric buses. They bought 6 electric buses. However, the school district did not actually buy the buses. Palmyra Eagle School District has a contract with Dousman Transport, and they're actually the ones who bought the buses. Palmyra Eagle, though, did the infrastructure for the charging stations. They paid for the charging stations, but they do not own the buses. One thing that we were told is these buses can only be used on routes. They cannot be used on trips or sporting events because the charge does not last long enough to take them on a trip or a sporting event. So I called down to Dousman and to get a little information on that from them. And the gal told me that they did have a rough winter. The heating system is not the greatest, and it takes about 45 minutes after the bus has been running before you can get some adequate heat. So they had people coming in ahead of time, starting the buses so that when the drivers got in them and picked up their first students, that they had adequate heat. And then the heaters were all upgraded over the summertime, but one thing I forgot to ask is, who paid for the upgrade of the heaters? Was that Dousman or was that the manufacturer? The battery, as I said, the battery charge doesn't last long due to the bus needing to run longer in the wintertime. So that was another issue they had. If we were to do something like this, our bus barn would need to be upgraded to meet the charging requirements. And the grant requires a route bus to be replaced to qualify. So you cannot use a spare. And I threw this last picture in here this afternoon. So bus 7 up there in the left-hand corner, that is one of our spares right now. That is a 2008. Bus 8, which is actually going to be replaced, that's our new bus coming in. That's going to replace bus 8. That's a 2013. So if we were to apply for a grant, I would have to get rid of bus 8, but I could keep bus 7. So that's one of the requirements. Yeah, I'd rather get rid of 7 and keep 8 than do the opposite. So in other words, you kind of have to get rid of a perfectly good bus in order to qualify for the grant. Yeah. Anyone have a question?
Will bus 8 take bus 7's place once the new bus comes in, or is that?
No. So right now, bus 8 will go also to a spare. And so I will have bus 6, 7, and 8 as spare buses. I will be back to three spare buses instead of 2 that
Okay.
I currently have. Yeah.
I made this comment earlier about, like keep it like we're lean, right? So I think today's a really good example. And if you wouldn't mind explaining, so we have 2 spares right now. Well, we happen to have some repairs needed on both of those. And we even went a little bit further. So can you just explain what happened today? Because it'll give a little perspective on how tight of an operation Janan's running.
Yeah. So right now, 6 is in the shop. So we have 7 as our only spare currently. Well, bus 9 had some issues last week with what we think is the child safety system on the bus. So that had to go down to Monroe. So bus 6 and bus 9 are actually in Monroe. So Steve was using bus 7 for his route. However, JV football had a game this afternoon in Fenimore, so they were leaving at 2:45. So 21 went to Fenimore. So that left us without a bus. The good thing is that route that Steve drives, which is Black Bear, does not have many rural kids. And in fact, his town kids, there's enough that what we were able to do is I ended up taking 7 for the green route, which I was driving for Kevin. And Steve ended up taking bus 4, which is our mini bus, which can seat 30 kids. So what we did is the town kids were loaded first. They were taken home. And then Steve went back to the elementary school, loaded up the rural kids, went to the high school, grabbed those few kids that he has, and went out on his route.
So it's not a real resource-rich operation, and I appreciate Janan's creativity, especially when we get into situations like today. So thanks, Janan. There's no seat belts on buses because in case of an accident, it is up to the driver to get everybody out safely. And so if you have kids who are buckled in and cannot get themselves out, it is up to the driver to get them out. We do actually have some seat belts that we have put in some of our buses for some of our younger kids. But they are not mandatory on school buses right now. I believe the ones that are coming in the new bus, I believe are 5-point seatbelt. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we're getting a new bus this November, December, which is
Mhm.
super awesome. And you said that's replacing bus 8.
Yep.
And are we going to be able to use one of our, I forget what you call it, the replacement or substitute buses for potentially a Baker's Woods route next year, or can we not? really do
Yeah,
that?
we could. And to be honest, probably I would consider bus 8 because that's the better of the three. But again, I do have to have somebody who's willing to drive
Right.
full time every morning.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Janine, you
Yes.
said that the number of students were increasing at Baker's Woods. So is that more families or is that more people not driving to school?
More families moving in to the Bakerswood subdivision.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's still houses being built. So I anticipate it being a large number of students next year out there. That is correct. And it's going to be sooner than 5 to 10 years.
And so that tunnel that Jim was talking about earlier from Baker's Woods may actually really help with that situation out
Mhm.
there as well.
It would. That is something that we need to look into because a couple years ago we did, we were able to get that classified as a hazardous area. And because obviously there is no sidewalks or no easy way for them to get here, we are required to transport it. Correct. Right.
Overall, how is the year going with bus routes?
So far, so good.
It's coming.
Been a lot of sunshine, sunny mornings.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janine.
All right. Up next, we have the wellness update report.
So Becca's going to come up and actually do back-to-back reports. But by the way, back to the transportation, if anyone ever wants to go on a ride, about 10 minutes to 7 is when they take off in the morning, and about just be around 3 o'clock, I think, right, is when they take off in the afternoon. It is a really interesting experience to get a sense of it. And I've did it before, and I've got a few more routes to try. So.
Okay, I combined both of my reports into one today. So I apologize for that, but I was like, oh, I'm going to be here. Might as well do it all in one. So the wellness update, the wellness committee met for the first time on October 1st. It'll be the first time since last year. We have a pretty standard agenda. Nurse Anna always gives us an update on any like current illnesses, kind of where we're at in terms of updates from the DPI. As of October 1st, we had no whooping cough within the district, which has now changed. So that, as you may have heard, that pertussis is running a little bit rampant through the state of Wisconsin and through the country. And we're seeing an uptick in cases. So public health helps with that. They will notify us if we have a pertussis case, and then give us a close contact letter that we can send out. So if families hear that there is a case in the district, they don't need to worry about it unless they get a close contact letter from us that says your child may have been exposed. On the record, I've gotten 3 of them from Portage High School for my kid. So it's out there. So we talked a little bit about that. And then along with that, COVID is, there's an uptick in COVID cases. There's an uptick in RSV. And now we get the wonderful influenza has started to arrive. So lots of fun things and then allergies. Let's just throw that on top of it. So lots going on. We did have a homeless liaison update and community liaison. Marcia Rear has taken over the community liaison position from Jenny DeLorem, who for this year has gone full-time as a special education para. So Marcia is now managing the Wildcat Closet and the Backpack Club. And then with Sophie Lindkamp leaving as social worker, I've now picked back up the homeless liaison designation within the The DPI, you have to acknowledge who is your homeless liaison so that other districts know who to reach out to in case we have to make agreements for transportation and such. So I took back on the homeless liaison. But Marcia does all the Wildcat Closet Backpack Club. She just started as of October 1st. Anna was doing that for the month of September. We also reviewed our goals from last year, and we determined we were going to send out a survey, which I need to do yet. I will get on that this week, out to the staff to find out what it is that they would like us to do. Last year, the Wellness Committee sponsored some activities within the district for staff. We had like wellness bingo. We did the euchre tournament, I think, yes, and other things. So we're going to send out a survey to see. Oh, and the Akela classes, we sponsored those. So send out a survey to see what the staff would like us to do again this year. And then we also discussed a way to promote some unplugged time with our students, and then talking about how we want to promote lessening social media for our younger students, or how we can get that message out to students. So that'll be out one of the goals of our wellness committee. And then nutrition education continues to be a discussion topic. We do that survey or a report card every 3 years, and nutrition education is always kind of a piece of that. So we continue to talk about that as well. Any questions about the wellness committee? It's a good time. We have a good time.
What are some of the activities you're thinking of doing this year?
I cannot remember off the top of my head, but we talked about, asking the staff if they'd like us to sponsor a Kayla coming back, doing the wellness bingo again, where they got gift cards right before Christmas. I'm pretty sure people appreciated Amazon and Target gift cards right before Christmas. Whether or not we wanted to do some of those social activities, right, where maybe we have a bowling tournament versus euchre. Some of those social activities, and then anything else that, like, do they want nutrition facts? Do they want the wellness? The financial wellness was not a big seller, but we'll put it back out there again. So those kinds of things for the staff.
Thank you.
Any other questions about wellness? Okay. The next part of my presentation is the forward, and ACT data was officially released from the DPI last week on Tuesday. So what I have provided to you is just kind of overall. I figured the colored graphs were easier to look at than a whole bunch of numbers on a page. So what I provided was just where we are compared to the state, and because really this is what feeds into a lot of this data is what feeds into our report cards. So when the report cards are released, you're going to get a better idea of how the district is doing overall in terms of all kinds of different areas. And this is one snapshot in time. And at the end of this, I have a slide that says, what does this all mean? But one of the things we do have to take into consideration is that they did change the ELA assessment for forward. They changed how it was given, so they shortened it up a little bit, but they took away the response question where the students had to create a written response, and they instead embedded those skills throughout the English language arts assessments. So instead of having just like one giant written response, they have it like short answers embedded throughout the ELA test, which gives you a better realistic view of what you would expect a student to do in the classroom versus say, here's a topic, write an essay, right? They do more of these small, short answers, explain your thinking. That's a daily practice. So this now reflects that. So they did change the ELA test. They did change some of the cut scores, and they did change, instead of being below basic, basic, advanced, proficient, it is now that far, developing, approaching, meeting, and advanced. So it goes a little bit, it matches better to some of the progress monitoring tools that we use within different different assessments versus below basic, and it's more positively based. So that's kind of how that all came about. So as you can see, this is overall district scores in ELA. And they report this backwards, right? You would think that advanced and median would be at the top and the other ones would be at the bottom, but it's the opposite. So you want to look at the blue and the turquoise colors together. That tells you kind of our students that are meeting expectations and advanced expectations district-wide for English language arts. And as you can see, our boxes are bigger than the state average. So we are doing better than the state average overall in the what? Our boxes are bigger. Thank you. Ah. Thank you, Pam. 8 o'clock on Monday night. And I can't see that far. So here's our math data. I don't know why it's grayed out. Thank you. Again, you can see that our meeting and advanced is overall better than the state average. And I think it's also important to point out that our no testing cell size has gone down across the board. And that is one of the things that we were noted on our joint federal notifications, that we had too many students opt out of state and district-wide testing. And this year that has gone down significantly compared to the state average. Here is our elementary data. So elementary forward scores in the English language arts. Again, they are have better scores than the state average in terms of meeting and advanced and in approaching and developing. So our students are doing well in ELA.
Becca, do we know why? I'm glad it's gone down for no test, but do we have any reasons or knowledge why it's gone down?
So part of that has to do with COVID. So when the state tests, after they came back, lots of parents opted their students out of the forward and the ACT. And then that trend continued for another year where parents were like, well, they're tested all the time. I don't think that needs to happen. Or, and they didn't understand what was happening. And so I think we've done a better job educating families like what the forward is and that it's a snapshot in time and that it doesn't it's more for us and our curriculum planning than it is for like deciding if your child's going to be retained or things like that. There are districts in the state of Wisconsin that encourage families to opt out because that in the past those scores were counted against you, and now they've changed the formula so that they aren't counted against you, but it does count against you in your joint federal notifications, which comes out later in the school year. Overall in math, the elementary, this to me is one of the best and most telling graphs. So if which is hard because we can't compare apples to apples over time, but the elementary school has consistently seen growth in their math scores since the implementation of bridges. And so as you can see, their scores are significantly higher than the state average. Your boxes are much bigger. And so Kelsey and Melissa and I have talked since this data was released, how excited we are to see where the ELA data goes with the implementation of collaborative classrooms. That clearly shows that consistent curriculum, scope, and sequence makes a huge difference. We will also see that in our middle school math, right? Here's middle school ELA. We have also see that our meeting is significantly larger than the state average, but their math scores look fantastic as well. And again, that's from, I think, Illustrive. So Illustrive is the middle school match for Bridges. And we're now into 4 years, Kyle? Are we 4 years into Illustrive? Yeah. And so that's 4 years of consistent scope and sequence that matches what our students have learned at in the K-5. So I think that shows awesome growth. Very excited about this. And then in high school, we only have forward scores for social studies. So I just put those on there. We are consistently just above the state average for social studies. Here's our pre-ACT scores. So this year we moved to the pre-ACT secure. And as you can see that Belleville, this is our 9th and 10th graders. They scored significantly higher than the state average as well in the pre-ACT. That goes across several different uh, subject areas as well. And then I gave you the breakdown between our 9th and 10th graders where they compare to this state. So, and then here's our ACT data. This is just our junior class, right? That takes that. The top is Belleville, the bottom is the state average. We came up just slightly in our ACT score this year and is consistently meeting kind of the state average. So looking towards seeing our ACT score grow just a little bit more every year as we get back to that level. The tiny box is writing. Yeah, and actually writing, because writing is scored on a different scale than the rest of the ACT, and actually it is not factored into your composite score. So, yes. Yep. So again, what does it all mean? Usually we look at longitudinal data, right? We like to see how like we can pick the third graders from many years ago and watch their score grow. Unfortunately, with the change in cut scores, we won't be able to fully compare apples to apples. There's definitely growth in our scores across all grade levels, and that we are consistently seeing more students in the approaching, meeting, and advanced areas than in previous years, meaning we have more students in the basic, proficient, and advanced categories. Our math scores continue to be an area of growth as consistent scope and sequence is there. And then if you take all that, you can think ahead to how that will translate to your school report card scores that I can't talk about. So, what? But think ahead. So any questions about our data?
So Becca, your bullet point number 3, you're attributing to that to like the continuation of the curriculum and
Mhm.
what other factors?
I think it definitely has to do with the curriculum, the scope, and the sequence, and that we're becoming more aligned as a district, definitely vertically aligned. So teachers are understanding what we're teaching the year before and the year ahead so that we're meeting all those targets. I'm excited to see where last year we started some work in social studies and science between 6, 7, and 8 to get that more aligned. I'm excited to see how that process continues. But I also just think too, are targeting our interventions, right? Like, so one of the things that the state did with the report card is we can now look at our target group, right? So the state report card has a target score, and whether or not you move the students that are in that target group, can you move them? That's closing the gap. And we now can see those students in Wise Dash. So I can go in and I can run that report. And we can then make a very consistent effort to target those students for intervention and close gap skills, which then looks better on our forward scores, which then leads to our report cards.
Thank you. And of course, our staff.
We have phenomenal staff. Yes, absolutely. The teaching practices, the relationships they build with students, that is also a huge factor in how our students perform.
Thank you.
In looking at the graphs for like the middle school and high school data, it looks like for Belleville, we do have a greater number of like the no test buckets across like the ELA slightly and math, and especially like the forward social studies
Mhm.
thing. So a couple of places there. So some of the targeted things that seem to have like maybe shrunk that during the elementary school, are these numbers also smaller than they used to be at the middle and high school as well?
Yes, yes. We had a fair amount of families that opted students out, especially some of our students with disabilities. And so case managers have worked with families to help them understand that we can provide accommodations. It's a snapshot in time. It really helps us plan for those students. And it really gives us an idea of how they're doing compared to their peers. And so I anticipate that number continuing to go down. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the 2024 summer school report.
Okay, good evening. I guess it's more of a summary of how summer school went over the summer. We were able to run 39 different classes, and we had just over 600 students participate this summer. So exciting. The program did grow a little bit. We ended up earning about 40 FTE this summer, which is just slightly up from the year before at 38. Both this past summer and the year before that, we had 18 days as our core program. The year before that, prior 2 years ago, it was 19 days. So pretty excited to kind of go up in FTE, showing that we were able to increase the size, which is a goal. Every year we're trying to look at ways to grow our program, our summer school program, and increase the participation of our students. And I think this year we're able to do that a little bit with bringing on some new classes. We were able to offer some classes that were offered a few years ago, like Moving You, Pedal Power we brought back, and then we brought back some Spanish classes, adjusted them a little bit. We brought one on for the intermediate students as well, which I think helped with that increased student participation. We did make some adjustments. One thing we did was move our Fun in 4K program to August, which helped us get our earliest learners into the building when the rest of the summer school program wasn't going on. And there was a lot of positive feedback around that, and something that we'll continue doing moving forward. Those students really were excited to be in the building by themselves. We really got to devote a lot of attention to them during that time. Really a positive shift. So just as you can see, kind of our trends over the years, like I mentioned, we did decrease in FTE, but that was also a decrease in days of our core program. Hopefully moving forward this year, 4th of July is going to be falling on a Friday. So hopefully we can go back to that 19-day program. It will help us increase our FTE again. But one thing we're thinking about as one change we'll be making for the future is our swim lessons. In addition to trying to grow our program as the area of focus, we are also looking at ways to balance the summer school budget. So we think about the cost of summer school for us versus the amount of FTE we're able to bring in through the participation of our students, gain a balance there. And Eric and I have been working on that over the past couple of years, and we've been watching and noticing and doing different things. We've been increasing class sizes, trying to find those high interest classes to bring in more student participation. And we've really noticed that swim lessons has been the area that's been really hard to balance. Reason being that DPI is mandating us to pay rent for the pool, basically. So we are having to pay about just over $12,000 from Fund 10 to Fund 80 to rent the pool for swim lessons for summer school. And that's something that's really hard to make up through student participation, especially because with swim lessons, you need to keep class sizes small for safety. So we can't increase class sizes and add more kids into the pool to offset that cost, because we have to keep those classes small. So with that, it's been really tricky to have to kind of balance that. So moving that and taking swim lessons out of summer school and shifting it into a community program allows us to kind of have some flexibility around that. So that's a change that we're going to be making moving forward this summer, is putting swim lessons into a community program this summer. We'll have swim lessons. It just won't be a part of summer school. What that means is it will drop our FTE. So we'll lose the minutes. We're not going to be collecting minutes anymore for swim lessons. We'll be offering swim lessons. We just will not be getting minutes for summer school from them. As a positive, once again, we won't have to pay rent to the pool. And we'll also be able to kind of add a fee in to offset some costs that we can, for like the lifeguards and some materials that we need to run swim lessons that we couldn't do through summer school. Summer school has some pretty strict guidelines on what you can charge fees for. It has to be consumable products. And with swim lessons, they don't have that. So we couldn't even charge a fee to buy new flippers or buy new things they needed to run those lessons. It was all on us to kind of take on those costs.
I have a question on that, Melissa.
Yeah.
How are we planning, and maybe I haven't thought about this yet, communicating that to the community? Because my hot take when I looked at these notes on Saturday was like, oh, like I'm not saying this isn't going to go over well, and swimming lessons are great, and my girls live in the pool June, July, and August. But one of the big benefits is that there hasn't been a cost. And I don't know if you and Eric have talked about costs yet, but I suspect that that is going to be a frustrating part, that the community is going to feel like is being taken away from them, even if we're doing the right thing with a bigger budget.
I agree with you, and I understand that. That's why we're kind of putting this out there now. Definitely getting communication out there early on with this shift. The fee associated with this would probably be a much smaller fee than any of the swim lessons around the area. I do have a little daughter that I looked at getting into swim lessons, and the fee wouldn't even come close to half of the swim lessons around the community, other communities. It would just be something to offset some of those materials that we need and some of the lifeguard fees. But early communication will be the important piece to it.
So to quantify it, we're anticipating having surveyed around the typical cost for a 3-week program is around 60. We're expecting 30. So that would be $10 a week or $2 a day. So really have to help people kind of see how that, like the per day cost is pretty low.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is a change.
Yeah. It's going to be a change if somebody has multiple kids and they do multiple rounds of swimming lessons and they're not used to paying $100 or $200. I mean, just thinking about the temperature in the room we had 2 hours ago about budget stuff, I just want to make sure that people don't lose sight of the benefit they're getting, but this is going to feel like another cost to them, and we need to be conscious of that.
And have we also considered, because right now with like summer school sign up, I take this class and then I schedule it in conjunction with this swim lesson, and swim lessons I know go like that instantly. So do you think there will be a greater volume potentially for swim lessons because this is getting moved out of summer school? And part two, like, is that scheduling piece going to be impacted for the better, worse? I don't know.
I hope scheduling might actually go better because actually it'll have to be 2 different processes due to 2 different platforms. We'll probably have to run some lesson scheduling first, and then once that gets started, then we'll have to open up summer school. So I'm hoping it might actually help with the scheduling and registration process. The pool and like the aquatic center and summer school will still be a very close partnership in everything. So we'll be able to navigate that and help families adjust schedules and all that still very easily, but I'm hoping it might help with the process. So yeah, that will kind of be the next step, is to kind of get that calendar set for all that. Figure out swim lesson calendar plus summer school calendar, get the communication out, start staffing, and then open registration up after spring break. So got a lot of work to do from now until then, but I think all good things will be happening. Any other questions?
I just wanted to say thank you for the expansion of the curriculum. I think it was really fun for like my now first grader to like learn Spanish. And I think he really also enjoyed like the like interacting with kids that are older than him too. So there's like the 1st through 6th graders or whatever that are all kind of learning the same thing or in the same space. I think that really just adds a whole new layer of, first of all, networking and friendships and communication and just learning from older kids and kind of seeing new ways of thinking about things. So I really love those programs and love the additions this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, up next is our CISA 2 report.
Okay, I will be reporting on the August meeting and the September meeting. So we met August 20th. We had a presentation by Audrey Lesendek, Senior Director of Language and Culture, and she reported on the summer migrant education program. And I can't remember if I forwarded that her presentation on to
I put the
I-
ones you sent to me in the board docs piece.
Okay, those were.
Yeah, those are the Chat GPT, but
Right. So I think I need to forward that one on because
Okay.
it was a really interesting presentation. And then we went through our usual reports. And in August, we generally have lots of new hires and for Head Start program, which we did. We also talked about the paid time off proposal for CISA 2 staff. And let's see, that was about it for August. So September, it was our virtual meeting because we're not having a in-person meeting every month, which takes some getting used to, but helps with scheduling. We had a presentation by Jacob Syndergaard with CEBS talking about employee benefits, and I passed that on to Jim and Eric. I can't remember all the details of that presentation, but I can get, if anyone has questions, I can forward that presentation on. We had, let's see. More action items for the Head Start program, but just as far as budgets. And then we did talk about the Association of Educational Service Agencies annual conference. It's going to be held in Orlando, Florida on December 4th through 6th. We usually have 3 to 4 board members attend and the executive staff as well. So that was those 2 meetings. Tomorrow night, we actually have a presentation by Scott Carr on career, community, and life readiness. So that should be really interesting, and I will forward that on to Jim to pass on to. And there were 2 attachments as well. So lots of activities.
All right. Thank you, Marion.
Oh, and then, sorry, one more thing. Yep. The Policy Council for Head Start is meeting Monday, October 21st. So, but that's a virtual meeting, so I can fit my other meetings in.
All right. Any
Thank you.
questions about the reports? All right. Thanks, everybody, for your reports tonight. Next up, we have discussion and possible action items. The first one being the 2024-2025 winter coaching contract approvals, and I will entertain a motion for that one.
I make a motion to approve the 2024-2025 winter coaching contracts as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Ryan, seconded by Alan. We'll open that up for discussion.
So Zach Nelson's going to come up in just a moment, but while he's coming up, I'm just going to, this is a 3-time-a-year process for us in terms of, as we look to the upcoming season, getting the hires in. So by the time we meet again, will be the start of the girls' basketball season. So I'll let Zach give a quick summary, and then if you have any questions, you can ask him.
Yeah. Sorry. If you look at the coaches that we will be approving, you'll see no changes for wrestling and girls basketball. Those staffs will stay the same. You will see boys basketball is an entirely new staff. All 6 of them will be new to our staff this year. 2 of them we approved already. That would be, but we still have to approve a contract for. That'd be Drew Schrader as well as Kevin Pachuki. At the time, we did approve Kevin as the varsity assistant. He will be moving to the JV job. And then the new coaches we would have is Dan Meyer would be the varsity assistant. And then Justin O'Connor would be the JV2 coach. JV2 is a new team we are putting back together. We're up to 29 signups for boys basketball right now. The goal with 2 or 3 more that are on the fence. That just will provide more opportunities for those kids to participate. The reasoning for moving Kevin down to JV, he has most experience running his own practices of the new coaches. So the JV and JV2 will practice together almost always. So putting someone down there with more experience would be better for those practices. And then you'll see for middle school, we'll have Sean Westfall and Willie Johnson. Sean has moved his way through however many years. His kid's in 7th grade right now, so he's been coaching them for a very long time. And then Willie has coached in the past and is going to be helping us out there for the middle school teams. We are actually having 2 7th grade teams this year, an A and a B, which is new as well, which means we're going to use the small gym for the first time in a while, which hopefully is well received, but we will see when those first games happen. And I'll be officiating those. So if you have anything you want to get off your chest, come on down to the small gym. Any questions?
I see we've got Justin O'Connor at both boys and girls JV2 teams. Do they have conflicting schedules or games, or do we anticipate any issues with that?
Should just be boys JV2. Our girls won't have. Our girls won't have 2 levels. Our girls, we have 17 girls signed up right now, so we just have just Eric Legal and John Beanash and Lucy Grady are the 3 coaches for girls. So no JV2 girls coach this year. Hopefully in years to come we get enough girls to do that, but currently we just have 2 teams.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we will not be filling that one this year. No need.
So the motion actually will probably should state that removal of that line, correct?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to amend the motion to remove the contract for the JV2 girls basketball assistant coach position. Anyone want to second my amendment?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion on this one? All right, hearing none, the motion is to approve the 2024-2025 winter coaching contracts with the removal of the girls basketball assistant coach at JV2 and everything else as presented.
Did you
All
get
right.
it? Did you get it?
All those in favor say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0. All right, up next in discussion, possible action items is the resolution authorizing a tax and revenue anticipation promissory note for cash flow purposes in an amount not to exceed $1 million pursuant to Section 67.12, Section 8A, Wisconsin statutes. I will entertain a motion there.
I'll make that motion.
Well said.
Second.
Motion made by Ryan, seconded by Alan. We'll open it up for discussion.
Thank you. So I've been doing work already behind the scenes with this loan. It's not really a loan yet because we haven't taken it. It's a line of credit. Last year, we, through claiming, through some really, I guess, good management of our cash flow, we were not able, or we didn't have to take any of the line of credit. So I was able to close that loan and in anticipation for this one. It's really a safe net for us, and with the deficit the way it is, we usually get thin right at the end of November, December. We wait for our January tax payments and some aid to come in, and then that kind of gets us through to the summertime where we'll get that August payment as well. So hopefully my goal is not to have to use it, but it's going to be there in case we do.
So to come full circle on discussion earlier, this is where prepaying our debt has a positive impact on the district, correct?
That is correct. Because with any kind of loan application, they want to see your audited reports, and we want to make sure that those are top notch. And so when you hand them over, there was no questions. There's never been a question for us. The other nice thing is we are staying local with Lake Ridge Bank. We have a really good relationship with them. So we can, with your permission, take withdrawals from that line of credit and put it right into our checking account, so we don't have to worry about any delay.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, the motion on the table is to approve resolution authorizing a taxable tax and revenue anticipation promissory note for cash flow purposes in an amount not to exceed $1 million pursuant to Section 67.12, subsection 8A, Wisconsin statutes as presented. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Final item on discussion possible action items is a potential referendum calendar timeline. And I will entertain a motion there.
I make a motion to approve a potential referendum calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Motion made by Alan, seconded by Beth, and we'll open that up for discussion.
All right, thank you. There's a lot packed in here that we don't all have to take care of tonight. So I drafted, I know when we met and had Baird come in last month, we talked about two things, or two big things I heard. One was drafting what a timeline might look like if we go to referendum. And the second I heard also was an FAQ. I apologize for not putting the links in there. I thought I had done it, which I had not. If you look in the notes administratively, I put in 8 different districts that have FAQs up on their website. They all have a little bit different look and feel. I put them out for you just to see what that might look like in terms of why go to referendum, what are the issues, so you can see some samples there before we make that decision. Because going to referendum eventually, if we decide to do that, we have to make that determination, but not until you really have that question approved. Are you really going to referendum? Up until then, you're really exploring. One of the things that we can commit to is a timeline of steps we would take leading up to that, and that's really. And I gave you a paper version. I know you all have it all on board docs, but sometimes it helps to scribble and jot notes and things like that. And so you can see on here we talk about that preliminary budget approval that we did last month, that discussion of the budget tonight, and then talking about potential surveying and communications, which I did also offer to you. We've reached out to 3 different vendors. They are very different in their approaches. We looked at School Perceptions, which is one of the most common surveying companies. And the reason to survey is to really gauge the pulse of the district. And then the Donovan Group, which really offers not just surveying, but really that communications plan that follows. School Perceptions tries to build communications into the original survey. Then there's another company, the Morris Leatherman Group, that really does a whole different approach, which is phone calling and doing some sampling, of course. When you get that personal touch comes a cost as well. So we have their proposals attached, and you might want to take some time to do that. I will tell you from the perspective of Eric and me, the most common one used, and it really has a high predictive rate, is the School Perceptions one. But that doesn't have to be the option. And I know some districts choose not to survey at all, which is always a choice as well. But that's just something to sort of layer in there. So when I talk about that surveying, that's what that item on October 14th. October 28th, we're going to talk about later in the meeting, because we do have to do the final levy and approve that. And since we'll be coming together, it is a potential day for us to, the levy certification, potentially to meet to decide on the decision to survey. We don't have to do that on the 28th. We could make that final decision in November. And then looking at data, the more, if you do choose to survey, the sooner you do it, gives that time, typically takes about a month. So if you make that decision in the end or November 11th, it's just a tight turnaround, but it still probably could get done. It just gives you a little bit more time if you do the 28th. Then we have a potential meeting on the 6th to, if the surveying is not complete, the surveying is completed, you review your data on the 9th of December. It's not completed, you could still review it in January. Finalize that question in January to have that final question adopted by that deadline on the 21st of January. And then once we do go to referendum, you really have that 2-month outreach to anyone that'll want to have that conversation about why going to referendum and the impact. And then election day is on April 1st. So you have the opportunity now there's a lot there for you to think about. And you can always update your calendar every time we meet, but at least a calendar does at least get you into that flow of talking about what we would do the next time we get together. Open to any feedback you have.
So I have two initial thoughts. Thought number one, I think this was in one of the docs. I don't remember which group is who. The people who call people, whichever company that was.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
was
remember
the
anymore.
Morris Leatherman one.
Yes, there are a lot of people that will not pick up the phone if they
Yeah.
don't know the phone number. So I am a little hesitant to go with that sort of vendor, knowing that we may not get a good representation. The other thing that I thought of that I jotted down, I think in my house, those of you who are West Wing fans, we make a joke that Joey Lucas is calling or Joey Lucas is texting because she was the pollster in the West Wing. Joey Lucas calls our house between 3 to 4 times a day right now and probably will for the next 3 to 4 weeks. So if we take an approach to doing a survey, I would love to not start until after the presidential election. One, because people are getting inundated with surveys right now. And two, I don't want this to get confused with the ballot that people will be voting on in a couple of weeks. I don't know if that's possible with whatever vendor we select, but I had somebody many years ago in Belleville standing in front of me in line who thought we were voting for librarian, and I cried a little inside. I just don't want people to think that if we're doing a referendum and they're getting a survey on it, it's going to show up in their ballot in 3 weeks. So I'd like to wait if we do this, and maybe not till the 11th, but at least wait until the presidential election's done.
What are your thoughts on surveying versus not surveying at all?
There is a school of thought that you just tell your community what you need, and this is what we need to keep the books balanced. And so, if you were to put out a survey that said, and you get the feedback that they wouldn't support the 1.4, but we're 1.4 in the whole, then you're right. That's a tough spot to be in.
We'd still ask the question.
Right.
So it'd be $8,500 to get a response, and no matter what the data tells us, we're going anyway.
Is there a benefit to just hosting a forum or a listening session as a way to communicate that that's the direction without having to do a survey?
I do that anyway, but yeah.
Right.
I mean, we did that last time around.
Yeah. At different places, different communities.
Yeah. I mean,
Did we get a lot? So we didn't do a survey last time, or we did?
We did.
We did.
Do we get a lot of responses?
We did, and that was part of the decision-making process of why we went with $1 million versus something else. Hindsight's always 20/20, but at the same point, it was Baird's recommendation as well as what the community's temperature was at the time.
Sure.
so we spend $500 to get data doesn't necessarily.
Yeah.
Not that I'm favoring one way or the other.
No, that's a good point, though.
Yeah, so the other angle is that you're also getting feedback as well.
True, we did the same thing
right.
at forums.
Right.
The people that would respond to the survey, the people that would come and talk.
Absolutely.
Not as many necessarily, right, Eric? But
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have a ton of people show up
yes.
at the listening sessions about it.
But even then, as long as you put the information on why you're doing it, you don't need a survey to tell people.
Is there?
The people, the colleagues that I've talked to who have used school perceptions as their surveying, they said it did two things. One, it got some people to say which direction they would lean, so you got a little bit of information. But it also was an education piece, so they were more shifting it towards, hey, this is what we have to do in order to continue with the quality that we have in the school
Which
district.
is fair, but wouldn't we want to be the ones educating people rather than a middleman?
You're absolutely right, and that's why some people chose not to and go with the approach of we have to go anyways. We don't have a choice. In this case, it moved up our timeline that we had talked about. We knew at some point in time this was going to be the case. It just, after working with a lot of professionals, this is where we're at.
And we're settled on the amount. So even asking in the survey, like,
The amount, the structure of it, I'm the one
Yeah.
working on that with
Okay.
Baird. I have a preliminary kind of idea of what
Okay.
that would look like, and trying to do some anticipation of what the mill rate would do at the same time.
yeah, that's what I was going to ask is like, I don't want to have to ask the community for a referendum annually.
Mhm.
So I wasn't sure if the survey would also give us an opportunity to say, what do you feel about at this level or this level or this level? But I could just not be
Yeah.
educated in how this all works either.
So there's a couple different ways that I've talked to Todd. He was here talking to the board. One is you could pick the number of years and it's just a flat rate. Then there's another one where it could be a step up, so you're kind of following the dollars per se, the CPI. The Baird model itself is pretty accurate a year out, but when you start to get to 2 and 3, you don't know what's going to happen in the world. You know what's going to the state next biennial budget, but you have a good sense of where your budget's going.
Okay.
I think people that were around for the building referendum in 2016, at the time they did the same kind of thing, a survey of would you support A, B, C, D, where A was what we needed and D was getting by. People are going to choose the less. Why would
Yeah,
they not?
that's a good point. Mhm.
Is there, are we,
We should just, for what we need, what we need to have to not lose things for kids.
What I'm hearing is the communication, the education piece is the most important. I think Jim and I have had multiple conversations about that.
I think you talked about the amount. For the most part, yes, because we know that deficit about 1.4 is there. We also know there's a couple other things that are not already addressed. One is we found out in the last week we did not get a significant grant for, and Eric, maybe you could explain the details of what we didn't get, but it's an operations cost around safety and security. As we look forward in the district, I mean, we're having conversations about our custodial staff trying to, they're running out to Farm and Fleet to try to patch walls to make sure they don't leak, things like that, like when I talked about, again, string and tape. So we have some operations issues, and also, and I think it would be good for the negotiations / compensation team, just to make sure from a perspective of are we market driven all the way across our, not just our right now we're looking at the teaching piece, but from the paraprofessionals, our administrative staff, our other non-union, just to make sure everything is in line as we look forward down the road. Because we want to make sure that we're not asking to be number one, but we're not asking to be out of the market either. So I think that was just, and I don't know what that number is. I don't know if it would change. Just a conversation I think we need to have. But Eric, do you want to just talk about that operations piece?
So the piece, it was a federal grant that we applied for. It was over $450,000, and it was for security. Is really what it came down to. Is through the Department of Justice. So we're looking at cameras. We're looking at our fob system. And we have a great one that works now, but they sunsetted everything with it. So with that, they're going more cloud-based. We don't have that ability. So we're looking at that as well as extra cameras to get the blind spots and make sure that we're secure.
so back to the surveys, is there any reason that we can't utilize our social media in place of that? I mean, obviously not open-ended questions on Facebook, but creating a survey on social media to.
Well, actually, yeah, it's interesting. One approach I've heard from a district, they call was it 2-question Tuesdays? Was that the term I gave you, Becca? I think it was. Where they, what's that? Yeah, 2 questions, where you put out just a couple of questions on social media every Tuesday of things you're trying to gauge your community.
Yeah.
And so there is like you said, we could use social media to try to get smaller little pieces of information. And as an iterative process, meaning based on the feedback we get, we can reshape our plan and continue to do that over time each week. So yes, that was a long answer to yes. Could be.
Yeah, I mean, that's why.
You float stuff out on socials, and if your intent is to use those responses to shape your plan, that could get weird.
I think you have to guide the discussion by having very,
I don't disagree with that.
focused.
And
Yeah.
you can do that all you want. You can't shape people's responses.
Right.
on things.
I mean, you could turn.
You can guide the discussion all you want. They're gonna spout off whatever they want.
Well, I think you're saying just
I mean, you could turn
like,
comment. I mean,
you're saying
theoretically,
just a
turn
multiple
commenting
choice.
off and then
But
just
that-
have the survey.
Oh, I guess, yeah.
So so you're only allowing responses.
But then the people could go to other forums to complain
Yeah,
about
well,
said
they're gonna-
survey, and then they can
yeah.
make them comment on it. I'm not saying it's not, couldn't be a potential.
Yeah.
That can go wrong.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from on that.
I think one of the features of school perceptions was that they have a database of questions already that we could utilize at a different cost. But then in order to get all the nice graphs and the, drill down on the things, that's where a lot of the cost does come into. Again, about half of the school districts use a survey. The other half have chosen, just like you're talking about, to say, this is what we need, this is what we have to move forward, and focus solely on the communication.
Do we have any metric showing for those districts that use the survey and those didn't? Does it have a substantial impact on the outcome of the referendum either way?
I don't think I heard that data.
I don't. I just know that the ones that did, that went to, I know school perceptions, they had about a 93 or 94% predictability from their, based on what their temperature was.
Right.
But I don't think anyone's collected statewide. If there's X number of districts did the survey, X number did not.
Yeah.
I don't have that. I don't have those data.
And you're referring to operational referendums with the survey, not
Yeah.
facilities.
Correct.
Because I feel like a facility, I could see, I totally agree with Tony's point of like, if we need this money, then we should just ask for it and not survey. But for a facility, I think a survey could have more.
Those are very different. Yeah.
I will say
benefit.
that, yes, when we do hear facility, almost unanimously, they'll survey.
Yeah.
And the opting out of surveying seems much more likely during operation.
Operational, yeah. I can see it more likely to be opted out for an operational than facility.
And predictability aside, even if they were 100% predictability, we're going regardless.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if they're
Yeah.
100%
No.
right. I'm predictable. Have to go.
You're correct.
So it's like I think we could better utilize $500 off of anything else.
Sure. I agree.
Inside.
So is this something we talk about further and leave as is now, or?
Well, actually, you could, if there's some items on here, like edits, and then you could make a motion for the edits you want on here, and then we could approve that. And again, bring it back each time we get together and talk. This conversation does give us more direction. If we decide to go that route, if the board has that as their intention to not survey, that shifts our planning and work.
Yeah, so the motion right now is to approve essentially this potential schedule.
Yeah.
And then there's a potential motion if we want to pursue a survey thing or not, which we do not have to do
Right.
this evening, if we choose not to do that.
Just with the calendar here, the timeline, it is important that a decision is made in the near future for this, because there's a lot of work that has to be done. So just kind of putting that out there.
Do the other board members have an opinion on surveying or not? I mean, is that something that we could knock out today as well, or are we not in a position to make a decision on that?
I like the idea of a survey as more of an information piece, and I feel like we could do an information piece really cheap and email it to people rather than spending all this money.
I agree. I think we're also a community, a district that's very entwined with the community. Like we have a lot of roots in a lot of different places. So I know Jim's been working really hard on infiltrating all of the community groups in various ways. So like having someone from the district who can speak to the referendum, as it comes up at the library or in the Kiwanis Club or, the fire, wherever, like with those networking opportunities. I think we have those in place already. So to that point, for me personally, it feels like a survey vendor might be less necessary for our community specifically.
Can we use past survey data?
Yeah.
Possibly? Or isn't that a good practice?
They don't recommend using past data because it's so different and we're in a different spot, different world.
I also feel like we have a lot more new families to the
Mhm.
community than what we did 2 or 3 years ago, the last time we did this.
We're different. Communities different.
Yep. I will amend the motion. Tell me if I'm doing this wrong. I will amend the motion then to approve a potential referendum calendar without survey as an option on here. Which I think means, Jim, you would go back through and adjust dates
Without using a vendor.
without
for
using,
survey.
yes, without using a vendor for a survey. Thank you, Alan. Yes.
I'll second.
So right now, as I read that, it really takes, the only thing that happens on the 28th is the tax levy certification.
On December 9th.
And then the next piece that's on there is finalized referendum question, January 13th.
I think on the 28th, it would be good for this group to think about if we want to do any sort of social media informal survey stuff, what that would look like. And just say, we're not going to use a vendor. We may choose to do some small thing internally, because I think we still need November and December to do that survey, whether it's with a vendor or not.
All right, so I have, I got to, everything stayed the same until the end of the 24-25 tax levy certification. I then lined out the rest of that and just added discuss social media outreach. Lined out everything on November 11th, December 9th, and January 6th. And then, and those blanks, again, we can talk about next month about what might fill in the middle there, but at least this is at least the plan now.
Sure.
And what this does is it forces us to come back and keep, agreeing upon where we are on the course of action, as opposed to getting to January and wondering how we got here, right? So this just forces us to be purposeful, if that makes sense. And then we can, the next time we meet, we can, based on feedback here, we can maybe layer in some other pieces for us to then do the same thing again.
Yeah.
At least we got sort of the bookends in there now.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I wasn't like super strong for or against surveying, but now after hearing everybody's comments, I think I can understand why maybe we don't need a paid outsourced survey. And then I wonder if we even need a survey at all of our own creation, like via social media or whatever. So I think in my mind, I'm replacing surveying with like not campaigning, but like an information push or something like that. Through the different community groups or informal meetings here where we invite the public to see, explanation of our need, things like that. So more of an information push, I guess.
I think,
like Tony said, we're going to go for it anyway.
Right.
If we keep asking questions, then we might lose support, I guess.
So the one item we might want to think about, based on what you're saying and everything else here, information was the right word, because we are allowed to provide information. We as employees of the district and school board members are not allowed to be advocates. A yes group may form, and that's fine. And I wonder if that review of the referendum legislation might be an item we might want to talk about in November. Since if that's where you think we're going, we could have that conversation sooner. And then knowing that that is the case, if we had that conversation, we could then also talk about what that information would look like, and we could draft some potential, but we could map out potentially what that would look like for approval as well. So all of a sudden, and the reason why I say that is then you probably, as much as you are happy that I'm infiltrating, you probably don't want to, Jim's doing what at the library already, as opposed to this is our plan, now I'm going out. So we have that, but we can map that plan out and maybe aim to have that legislation conversation and an outreach plan we could talk about sooner. Bring that in November.
Yeah, again, I would not do it in October for the Joey Lucases of the world who will continue to mix up
No,
what's
and
on the ballot.
And that would be a conversation for the November 11th for this group to have before we went out. Yeah, we're not going to try to match the bandwidth exhaustion that's taking place. So I'm sliding the review referendum legislation up to the 11th of November. And I'm just thinking about that outreach. Well, that's provider, and then we could talk about an outreach plan too.
So do we need to amend the motion at all, or are we just approving the motion as calendar is presented? I mean,
Well, it looks
Right.
quite a bit different now.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Instead of as presented, we can just say with edits based
Yeah.
on what Jay
Based on-
said.
yep.
okay,
That's fine.
thanks.
so I will amend my earlier motion to approve a potential referendum calendar with edits, not including a vendor for survey.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Beth and seconded by Meg. Any further discussion or questions? Everyone know what we're voting on?
Hold it up, Jim. Let me see it quick.
This is the most
There it
discussion.
is. That looks
I
great.
love it. This is the most discussion I've had on this board, and it makes me very
I will
excited.
send the cleaner version to you all tomorrow morning.
All right, so the motion on the table is to approve the potential referendum calendar with edits as discussed and to remove any stipulation for a vendor doing the survey. All those in favor of that motion, please say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes 7-0. All right. That concludes our discussion possible action items. Now we have a few discussion items, starting with the student enrollment update.
So I just, in your file, we have and I'm going to pop it up here as well. This shows the enrollment, and I did a little, speaking of doing one of these, like, hey, see over here. As I looked at the enrollment trends from last year, this year by grade level, so I kind of looked at the cohorts and saw that kindergarten, we went down 4 kids. And now again, when I say kindergarten went down 4, I'm talking about is they went from pre-K to kindergarten, so that same group. And when I say first grade, it's the group that went from kindergarten to first. So we saw kindergarten go down 4, first go up 3, second go up 2, level, +3, +3, -1, 0, -2, +1. And then, so it's a little ups and downs, and then we have a -2 and a -4 at the end. So really not, we're looking a little bit as, like, was there a surge in any particular direction? There was not. Some of those numbers toward the end of those upper levels are not unusual to see. Students sometimes late in their careers will try to queue up for post-secondary. So relatively speaking, the biggest thing is the group that left is bigger than the group that's coming in, is in a nutshell. And so we're a little bit smaller, but that's just because of those bulges. But the head count goes from 951 to 935. So it's a difference of 16. The FTE that Eric talked about is a little bit smaller because of the way you calculate, especially kids at the 4K level. So your first instinct is, oh, are we now a shrinking district? Not so much. It's more just of a big group that was on the way out. So as we also looked at the open enrollment, I think one of the numbers we always look at is a year ago, these numbers were level. And now there's 10 difference. So again, you go, what happened? Right away, I think, and I put in the notes, I think we had, I can't remember the number off. I put in the notes we had, I think it was it 5? Yeah, that number memorized. But we had some students that kind of came to us but bounced right back out right away because they were not staying in district, or they were staying with they were high schoolers. They were staying with the grade or the school that they had already been with. So even though they moved, they were going to be commuting. I did share a different file with you as well, which broke down the where they're open enrolling to based on grade level. And when I talked to Pam Christian, I said, how many of these are new? And a lot of these are students that are simply just, this has been their life pattern. They've been throughout their educational journey. And again, most of ours are Oregon and New Glarus, which shouldn't surprise us. And those aren't new numbers. They're just students that are, again, shifting through the system. So my first instinct coming in is, is like, am I seeing a trend or a wave, or is there a movement that's happening? And it's relatively static, even though those numbers look different just because of the class sizes that left and came in as in a nutshell. But there are your numbers. And if you have questions, Becca can also jump in on anything I missed if you do have specific questions. But those are the enrollment numbers we're seeing. And anyone that wants to go on saying we're shrinking, we're getting bigger, it's pretty static right now. The thing we are seeing queuing up again is we do know the village is looking at permits in the future and expanding some subdivision opportunities for families to grow into.
Jim, in the past, there's been follow-up with the families that are enrolling out. Will you continue doing
For the
that?
open and rolling out, and again, yeah, the all but 2 or 3 of the cases were that bouncing, coming in. They really were never here in the first place. The other students, there was actually a lot of counseling and work done with the family leading out. So we do know the story as to why, and I can't bring that up publicly, but I mean, when I talked with Mr. Loshaw, they were ongoing conversations where it was like full agreement of the situation that worked best for those families. So those ones were not a surprise at all and had been part of an ongoing conversation. Nothing that was decided overnight.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments about that one? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to boardsmanship.
All right. So in the annual meeting, there was an approval of the salary piece, and you may have noticed, like we've been learning lessons. And Katie, I don't know how much you want to take over on this one, or you want me to share.
Yeah, just wanted to call out, and we had this discussion at our special board meeting as well, that board member salaries for school board members were updated to be renewed at the rate that they're currently at. But the language in the amendment and the motions that we made tonight say that is our sole form of compensation. Historically, board members have gotten also paid for each meeting that you attend as being part of a committee, and in doing some of that cleanup and referring to statutes, discovered that only one or the other is appropriate. So we've essentially taken out the language that allows us to do both. So going forward, we will only be paid that base salary. And then just another thing for consideration is that per statutes, we don't have to bring this up at the annual meeting every single year. Now that the salaries are set, unless we plan to change them, we don't have to bring that forward for voting every single year. So you can expect to not see that at future annual meetings.
So yeah, that statement of sole form actually cleared up something that had been approved by the electors back in 1999. So it had been around for 25 years. So that alignment finally took place tonight. So. The next piece is we do need to do that levy approval. As Eric mentioned, tomorrow at 11 a.m. is a special moment in time. Annually, typically we do that at an October meeting, usually a couple weeks after. We need to do it before the end of the month. Our suggested meeting would be on the 28th at probably 6 p.m. But when we do, and we can finalize that at when we get to that future board meetings. But we do need to come together and do that final levy. We can do that remotely. And as a matter of fact, I double checked it. You bring up also I'm going to jump to my fourth item. So last week, and Eric, you can come up in just a moment, and then I'll stop talking. So last week, Megan, Marion, and I, we met with that Dane County group, but we also, Megan and I went to the WASB fall regional meeting, and I left that meeting just double checking, can we do those remote meetings? The answer is yes, so we could do that. Eric, you want to jump in about the levy as well?
Yeah, I do need signatures, so I do need to have some people here. Katie and Marion, I do need your signature.
Assuming we give you money. And that's the October 28th you're talking about, that meeting?
If that's the day we choose.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so tours of the building. So we have several new board members and some who never had a tour of the building. I floated this out there earlier, but if any, I don't know if collectively or people would like tours, but Katie reached out and we did you did one with Eric. I was at the conference for WASDA. I don't know if you want to just mention real quick how that went, but they don't have to be as a group. We can do them one-on-one as well. But if you've never done a tour, it is a nice opportunity to see the building and walk through classrooms. And I don't know if you want to take a moment just to talk about your experience.
Yeah, nothing too over the top. I just hadn't, I mean, I've seen, like, my kids aren't in high school, so I've seen the library and part of the hallways at this point, before doing the tour, and was fairly well versed in the elementary school, but got to see the dungeon locker room that Eric was scared to go into, but got to see, just like all the spaces, kind of ask questions about how they're being utilized, how they're not being utilized, why we're not utilizing them in XYZ way. So it was really informative, and I had a really great tour guide, so it was really wonderful, and kind of really helpful. It took us about an hour to kind of walk through both buildings and answer some questions. So really, really great. I wandered through, I think, Mr. Bussey's class to get back to the shop area too and see some stuff. So yeah, it was really informative and I thought really helpful.
So I think I two different approaches. I'm gonna suggest approach two. One is we all decide on dates when you all like tours. I think you all would pass out from exhaustion. The other option is if anyone reaches out saying they love a tour and picks a time, I would then share that out with everybody else. And if they want to jump on the tour wagon, we could do that at that time, which I think might be a little bit easier. So if you look at your schedules and want to tour the buildings, just shoot an email about dates and times that are interested. And then I would float that out to everybody to say, school board member X requested this date and time. If you're interested in joining, just let me know, and we will expand the number of seats on the trolley, so to speak. So, and hopefully get you to. I've seen Becca do the tour. She did it with the first responders in the summer, and I heard about Eric's tour, so I know they both have done an outstanding job, and so we can make that happen for you. So, does option 2 sound best? If you want the tour, just reach out, and then I'll share that with others. And you can jump on. What's that? You can pick your tour guide, and absolutely. So you can make that request. Last week, I'm hearing moans in the back, so I hope everything's okay back there. Last week, I did mention about the Greater Dane County Consortium. I don't know if Meg or Marion just want to take a moment just to share their perspective on it, and the thought is that if there's enough interest, we may bring that back in November for approval. But I wanted you to, I shared mine. I think my greatest, it was a free flowing opportunity to hear from other perspectives. And one of the things I heard I heard two things that were very interesting to me. One was the opportunity to, as you started having that conversation about the referendum, having a workshop part of your meeting. And so you can have a little bit more of that free flow conversation was something I heard. And the other thing I heard that I thought was really intriguing is bringing the no's and yes groups together because they do have a shared interest in the frustration with what the state's doing. And that was very interesting. They're hearing from no groups saying, we're not opposed to the money going to you. We're opposed to what the state's putting, like the way they're going about doing it. So that was an aha for me just in hearing those discussions. I'll let the two of you share what you heard that night.
I think it was a great opportunity to meet with other districts in Dane County and just get their perspective, large, small districts. And I always like getting together with other board members and district administrators just to, tap into their knowledge.
I liked the format of the meetings. It seems like their format is like some social time, some chatting and networking, a formal presentation piece. This time was Mike Berry from WASBO, the Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials. And I thought his presentation was really good. It helped me better understand some of what has been going on at the state level. And then after that, we broke into like table groups and we discussed different aspects of like who is our audience, what's the story we want to share, like helping us get into the advocacy piece within our own communities, and then also just across the state, because it's not just each district saying, we want our fair share. It's saying like the whole, on behalf of the state, like we all want, our fair share. So there was some really good discussion about that. And it just felt there was like a feeling of momentum with the group that I think would be neat to be a part of. And even New Glarus, that has only like a little corner in Dane County, is part of it. So it's our neighbors, that are in there too. And we do share, I think I put their purpose statement. We do share, like we're all different, but we all share a lot of the same challenges and aspirations. And then, like we can just do more when we work together. So, this is just like a small regional group that would be in addition to the WASB stuff. Could be useful to us, and hearing what worked with others. At the presentation, they said that they were talking about the rates of approval rates of referendums across the state, and how many had tried in the spring and then we're going again in the fall, and what worked and what didn't, and different things that different districts were doing, because a lot of us are going for operating referendum, if not this year, then next, and so forth. So I think it's helpful to network with our peers. So that's my little piece.
So the group on January 15th is bringing together the directors from all the W's. So WASBO, WASDA, WASB, WASPA. I'll keep making, the HR one, right? So they're bringing together all those just to talk, to kind of give have that conversation about consistency and messaging and about funding. And then I can't remember what May 7th was about. I think also on November 20th, they're looking at something a little bit different so Jeff Wright is from Sauk Prairie, is now running for DPI, the head of schools, and might be doing a meet and greet type of thing as well. So, so a variety of different things that are at play there. So it's an interesting mix, and it has a little bit different of a flow to it maybe than the WASB regional meetings and some other things.
Anyway, there is a cost to joining, just for our future discussion, but it's really nominal, and it's meant to just cover the food during that social time. So everybody that hosts, they order food locally, and then everybody has like kind of a chatty communal dinner together. And then it's just really to cover those costs.
I thought that, like if we join for, say, a year or whatever, and if it's something that we find isn't useful or purposeful, then we're not out huge sum. So, but it's great networking. And
It was a different dynamic than I'm used to in other meetings. So it was, I think it was the mix of those different players I mentioned earlier that was pretty unique.
Well, thank you guys for attending and reporting back. I'm kind of curious what went on there. So good to hear what that was about. So we can bring it up at a future meeting if we are interested in joining that group and looking into that. So thanks for that.
A couple other pieces I did, was able to connect with Ben Niehaus from, he's the member, or the director of membership in WASB. And we had a conversation about a couple different items. And one was that annual board development tool. And I put some notes in the in board docs for you, but it's actually free to do it. It's a survey, and you get the data out, and you can just take the raw data as is, and it spurs conversations among the board. So you probably would do a workshop to review your data. For $250, you can get the fancier reports from School Perceptions. And then you could also purchase facilitation, which would likely be someone like a former superintendent that's working with WASB that could come and facilitate. I don't think we necessarily would need that, but I just want you to know the levels that you could be done with that. But at the very minimum, that tool is available to us. It's the tool is free. And then again, you could just take the raw data, and we could decide if we wanted the report, special reports later on. So that was one piece. Just wanted you to be, and then be aware that that is, again, on the, I would suggest at the very minimum, taking the survey, looking at the raw data, having conversations is a worthwhile activity. And the other piece was they do also have this online learning platform. There is a cost. So you can see it's $895 a year. There's over 50 recorded webinars that range from 20 minutes to 90 minutes. And they are meant to educate on particular topics associated with board members. My suggestion on that one is don't go run out and buy that. Ben is going to send some samples. You could take a test drive with those, see what you think. And so you don't have to, but as I think about new board members and things like that, that's one option. It's not the only option. So when he does send that, he'll also send a table of contents, and you can see like, oh, this looks really interesting. Or, right now some of the version is send Jim off to camp, and then I come back with some of that as well. So either one probably will work for you. And but it's let's just take a look. I wouldn't suggest purchasing anything at this time, but I was thinking immediately about like Alan and Meg and Beth, who joined most recently. So
I did find the free ones that they had helpful.
Yeah.
I did look through some of those and they were helpful.
did they send those in the April? No, they didn't in April. You did yours after you came in.
I think I got them in August.
They
once
just
I
sent it out
joined.
afterwards?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they were useful and not super long.
All right. Anything else to discuss with boardmanship from folks? I don't think I forgot anything, so we'll move on to future agenda items.
I'm looking at the board business calendar, and the Wildcat Bowl / food service report will be in November. The report card discussion is typically November. That's going to have to wait because of it's not going to be made public until the 19th. So we have to wait on that one probably till December. But we will send an update to you immediately on the morning of the 19th. The school improvement plan, goals piece, and principals is down below. So between principals, kind of giving an update in the year, and especially with their school improvement plans will be coming then. It also has the district administrator goals. So one of the things that I would like to talk about is I'm encouraged that we do a closed session on my own evaluation just as a formative assessment piece. And then Director of Athletics and Community Ed Recreation. We also do have to bring, we forgot, given everything else, that second reading on capital assets, but that's fine. We're not in a rush on that one, so we can do that one in November. We also have the big package of Neola stuff is coming to us that we're going to review on October 23rd, and so we'll be bringing that to the board hopefully in November. And likewise, I did mention I sent over the weekend or last night the update on the audit. We had that audit finding, and so we'll have to bring some language about the Davis-Bacon. Do I have that right, Eric? Davis-Bacon federal policy amendment / all that piece. We do have to do some modification just to meet the audit expectations. So got quite a few things in November.
Busy month. How about future board meetings?
Oh, sorry. Can we put on there about the topic of possibly joining the
Greater Dane County?
Yep.
Yeah.
I did have that penciled in. I just forgot to mention. So yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Future board meetings.
So I think we're looking at November 11th, 6:30 p.m. for the regular board meeting. And then we just have that levy meeting. We'd like to establish a time and date after tomorrow at 11 a.m. So 6 p.m. was the proposed one on the 28th. Thumbs. And you'd be able to come remotely? Okay. It is one of the shorter meetings of the year, is that correct? Yeah. It's a pretty quick one. We could go earlier if you wanted. That would help. 6 p.m., October 28th. Okay. But I would anticipate short.
Any questions about future board meetings? All right, up next, we have a possible closed session and I will contemplate a motion to enter closed session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Motion is to convene in closed session under Wisconsin statute 19.85, section 1C for consideration, including action, if appropriate, regarding employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of potential employees. Discussion regarding an employee disciplinary issue or an employee resignation. Got to make sure we get the statute in there. So I'll make the motion with the statute. That's okay. All right. Made by me, seconded by Ryan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take that up for a roll call vote to go into closed session. Marion, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Meg Anthony,
Yes.
Alan Charles,
Yes.
Ryan Kubley,
Yes.
Tony Schmidt,
Yes.
Marion Finney, yes, Katie Worley,
Yes.
Beth, yours,
Yes.
7 in favor.
All right, motion passes 7-0. We are entering closed session at 9:37 p.m.